Call this meeting to order. This is a workshop which we scheduled for today for discussion of traffic safety calming measures. And so I believe that the way we ended the last workshop, we were running out of time, and we had several, I thought, very constructive ideas. We left in a very good place, and those ideas have gone now to the city staff, and they've come up with this document for us to look at and to discuss further, and also to have input from the public. And so would someone like to start, Mr. White?
Yeah, I would, Mayor. If the document you have in front of you is a revision from the original, if you remember the original, I put in a manner that you could read and follow a little differently. Before you start discussing, there is two things that I want to point out that I would like to go ahead and change. If you're looking under the introduction, you see where it says speeding as one of the bullet points. I meant to say radar speed signs. These would be the ones you see, it's supposed to be 25 and you're doing 35 and it's flashing at you. Instead of the word speeding, that was on my part. And then on the last page in number 14, 48-hour or more traffic count, because sometimes it does take a little longer on traffic count, and 24 hours is not enough. So I'd like to give staff, the committee, a little bit more time if we need it in a certain area to, so it'll be 48 hours or more. But this is a revision. The main thing is somehow the traffic safety gets initiated somehow. If it's someone speaking to you or someone comes in, or lets us know of a situation. Number two, it would be a traffic safety analysis and classification, in which the committee that is formed that consists of myself, the city engineer, public works director, police chief, and fire chief, will review the area and look at different criteria to try to decide what we want to. Then I will actually come to you with a recommendation, and y'all make a decision. Very simple, very clean. Done away with all the petitions, all the stuff that y'all had asked me last time. So it's pretty straightforward.
So once a resident has come forward, we're going to go ahead and do these things, and then where do we stand then with the ones that have already come forward?
My idea was after you'll possibly approve this or give changes to approve, the next meeting I'll bring you those, each road and what the recommendation is, and y'all can take our recommendation or do what you like.
Those studies that were already done.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
We'll break down I'll break down each one individually and give you a better idea. That way you can make an informed decision.
Classification, I'm a little bit blurry on that. You're going to classify it as one of the bullet points. What are the 14 bullet points?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I'm trying to classify, is it a traffic condition at the location?
Okay.
Is it, there's there signs there? Is there construction nearby? We just need to look at everything going on.
Okay.
Any of the roads right now, any of the roads that are very close to 390, that's something we probably need to wait on, because there's so much major construction. We don't know how it's going to end up, and traffic flow and patterns will be in the future. So, that'd be an area that, if it touches 390, you may not want to do nothing there.
Well, I had, last night on my Facebook page, I had just mentioned the time of the meeting today and the workshop, and that we would be talking about traffic calming. And I said everybody's invited to attend and participate. Well, I had a lot of people who, not a huge amount, but enough that I could share. I had several people who asked me to please share their concerns today at the meeting, and I told them that I would, because they could not be here. So with your patience, I'll do it very quickly, just to let you know how people are feeling about this. There were 18 people who positively responded that there was a post about traffic calming. And then Debbie Knoll As a friend and longtime resident of Lynn Haven, myself and other neighbors have requested more police presence at Lynn Haven Cove Apartments. It's a little off the subject, but anyway, that's something that I told her I would bring up. She said somebody was knocking on the door, and she went into some more detail, so I'll bring that up to city manager. But the rest of them, thank you for acknowledging the need for slowing down the traffic. I hope Delaware Avenue is high on this list. That's Pat Adams. Patricia Summerlin, I would love to be at the meeting, but I cannot. I am very concerned that I see people running stop signs every time I'm out. I will not proceed through an intersection anymore without making sure that other people have come to a complete stop. Maybe speed bumps and warnings painted in the street ahead of the stop signs could help this. Lots of stop signs are hidden by foliage or parked cars. New industries are coming to Lynn Haven all the time. I think that's wonderful, but that's going to bring people into our neighborhoods that are unfamiliar with our street. And then I had a couple of Jennifer Lynn Pippins, Colorado Avenue, and that's one of the ones that I brought up. Also, it's ridiculous, the speeding. Selena Robertson Waller, please, white lines on the road with all stop signs, please, thanks in advance. Becky Johnson Goss, Connecticut Avenue has too many speeders racing down the road. Mike Freightner, Arkansas Avenue between 389 and the Country Club really needs some speed bumps. Someone is going to run over these kids as trying to cut through the neighborhood. Emily Canzoneri, can you also bring up the subject of parked cars and trucks on the streets? There should be a limit of time or better ordinances about keeping people from parking on the street across from the end of a driveway. Code enforcement comes out every so often. The neighbor moves the truck for a couple of hours and then it's back. It would be nice to have a law that says you can't park on a street blocking or across from a driveway. Virginia Nichols Starling, I can't make it, but I would love more light on the old bridge, and then we've talked about that, so that's just another. Leah McKenzie Paschal, she's saying thank you so much for all that you and the city are doing. I promised a few weeks ago about a large pothole, and it was taken care of promptly, so that was. But anyway, that's just to let you know that there is, quite a bit of response from people in the neighborhoods anytime that you put that up. So that's my input towards this.
What is y'all's thoughts on the procedure now? Is it where you want it to be, not be?
This is pretty much what I was saying at the last meeting, so I mean, I'm on board with it. And one of the only questions I would have would under section, or part 3, where it says city manager's recommendation, I'm assuming that would be the recommendation that comes back from the traffic safety committee?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I put it in there, I put city manager due to the fact that I'm going to be the one
Be the head of it.
speaking on. Yes, sir.
That's fine.
And I had one more concern as well that I just wanted to kind of get feedback. Public Works Director, Police Chief, Fire Chief, and City Engineer, just like you, are obviously very busy people. And so I'm wondering if when these come in, is it necessary that all members of that committee be, you know what I'm saying, can one or two, or, so that they don't feel, or maybe there's a time that, it just seems to have all those very important city workers together at one time is a little burdensome to them.
My intent is, y'all meet every 2 weeks or so, so my intent is to try to save some of these and we do them all at once to save time and not meet. And plus, I have the Thursday prior to any meeting on Tuesday, I have a staff meeting, so I have all those in there.
So
I just have to invite the city manager afterward, city engineer.
I was just concerned because I was really pushing for this change, but at the same time, I don't want to put a burden on your department heads, so to try to find a way.
No, we will share the information on certain roads, and everybody can give feedback, and it'll be a quick meeting, to be honest with you.
Perfect.
And then you'll provide us with that same graph you did last time?
It may have graphs, it just all depends on the road and the situation and what people's asking for.
But if you, like what you did last time, you provided us with the speeds and how many cars traveled it, we'll have that, right? Because you'll have to put out the...
We will, especially on the roads that we know. If we know there's some other circumstance, we may not have that at each road because it may not be needed because we know of another situation, but most of the roads, yes, ma'am.
The initiation phase, just one more time, just for clarification for residents and myself, can a resident just call City Hall, or do they have to come through us? Do they have to come to the meeting? Are there various ways?
There's various ways. I just
Okay.
put initiation and left it at that because, y'all see a lot of residents every day and they mention something to you. And if you hear enough, we'll start tracking these a little bit more and try to see how many people.
So I can just give you the list that I just read?
Yes, ma'am.
Because they contacted me. Perfect.
Yes.
So simple. Nice.
Or they call my office.
Okay.
Well, my concern pretty much stays the same. In the introduction, we've got slow vehicular speed, and then we've got stop signs and four-way stops listed as a way of slowing vehicular speed. And I don't know if we got an answer or if we're going to have an answer as to how that relates back from city attorney. So I'll let you.
As far as the manual, what?
The manual and utilizing stop signs to slow.
As a speed
traffic.
control
As a
device?
speed control device.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what the manual says on that, but I'm pretty certain it says that they're not to be used as a speed control device. As far as the manual, I know, if you remember last time, I kind of had a lawyer answer about, this is a difficult decision, as far as not decision, but answer to this question. And I have not been able to get a conclusive answer to the question about whether we are required to, shall use the conditions in the manual. And so my answer kind of remains the same as it was last time, which is the manual itself. And here's what the statute that the mayor cites does give us original jurisdiction over the roads. But it says, as long as those conform to the manual specifications of the Department of Transportation. The DOT has adopted the federal manual. If you look at the federal manual, there's a bunch of shoulds in there. It doesn't say, thou shall do this, thou shall do this. It's all should. You should have an engineering study. You should have this. You should have that. You should have this. There's opinions out there kind of going both ways. A big picture item, the liability question that you were talking about, is that planning level decisions, city is absolutely immune from. And so if someone sues us for a planning level decision, we have absolute immunity. We're not subject to any kind of liability for that. Doesn't mean we won't get sued. It means that's an affirmative defense that we would raise. But, and the courts have consistently held up the placement and installation of traffic signals as a planning level decision. The operational level decisions, we have immunity, but there's a waiver of immunity up to a certain point in the statute. We can be sued for those. And that is basically like if we put up a stop sign someplace but don't maintain it, or we let stuff grow up around it so people can't see. And so there's some liability for those kind of decisions. But as far as whether to place one there or not, that's a planning level decision. However, the same Supreme Court case that talked about that mentioned the statute, this particular statute. It says it only applies to new devices. This case is from the 80s. And so the question in that case was whether the city had a road that didn't meet the criteria, the design criteria. And the Supreme Court said that they don't have to go back and redesign the road. It's already there. And we don't expect them to redesign traffic signals. But that's not what this is a new installation, so the answer is not particularly clear. There is a Attorney General opinion out there from Attorney General Christ back in the 90s, where a city had put up no-through signs, no-through street signs. It's Cape Coral, where they have lots of canals, sort of like we have up here, where there's only certain roads to go across, and the citizens were complaining that they didn't want people driving down the road, turning around, coming back. So they put up these no-through street signs. Some citizens were not happy about that, and they actually asked the Attorney General the city ended up asking the Attorney General for an opinion, and the Attorney General came back and said that the city had no authority to put up those signs because they're not authorized in the traffic manual. Now, a stop sign is authorized, so it's still unclear. So I've reached out, the bottom line is I've reached out to DOT and their general counsel's office to try to get what their opinion of it is. They do have, there's a section of the statute that allows DOT for non-conforming traffic signals to basically have them removed and sue the cities and have them removed. My understanding is that has only been, if we were to put up a purple stop sign that is square, they would be here in a second. I don't know if they're going to care if we don't have 5,000 traffic, the traffic study didn't show there's 5,000 people going through an intersection beforehand. So I'm trying to ask them if they've ever, I've asked them the base question I had. They sent me an email, it didn't really answer my question, so I'm going to try to talk to the lawyer involved. But essentially, I want to know if they've ever gone after a city for not, because they give us jurisdiction in one side of the statute, and then otherwise they say, but we're going to take it all away. And so it doesn't make any sense. So my opinion remains the same. I think that we ought to have some criteria, as the city manager has in the traffic policy that's proposed, that ought to be reviewed. We ought to show a good faith effort to examine everything, look at the manual and see, whether it shouldn't be, maybe they shouldn't be used as a speed control device, so it's stop signs. But in the end, I do think that we do have some discretion within those guidelines. But I will definitely get an answer. I mean, I'm going to call him every day for the next 2 weeks until he calls me back. So, but I think that's where we're going to come out with all this. It's another lawyer answer, but yeah, hopefully it's a little clearer.
He's going to give you a lawyer answer.
Yeah.
Well, and to follow up on what you're saying, the fact that there is no definitive case that says no, the sentence, the commission recognizes that properly placed and so forth, but it says reducing vehicular speeds and discouraging cut-through traffic. I think that phrase, the discouraging cut-through traffic, helps that out a lot because on my own street, which as you know I refer to frequently, but that's where I live, and 6 years ago, well actually 8 years ago now, when I moved back there to that house, the traffic was unbelievable. And, because I've just, been over and over, please, 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 and there have been 3 stop signs added to Tennessee Avenue in the last 8 years. And I will tell you, it's a different street. It is a totally different street.
Okay.
And it's not so much about the speeding, and there was plenty of that, and occasionally still is, but now there's not near the amount of traffic on that street because people, the reason they were cutting through is they didn't want to stop at the traffic signals on 77. So I think that we can talk about discouraging cut-through traffic and cutting down on people cutting through neighborhoods where they shouldn't by having the stop signs, because it doesn't say you can't do that. And we could fix that so that it's totally correct if we put the word "or" there instead of "and," for reducing vehicular speeds or discouraging cut-through traffic. That's just a suggestion. That's an English teacher thing, but that would make it have a different meaning. And I do very much respect what you're saying. I mean, I really do about what the federal guidelines and the manual say.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think that what our lawyer has told us, the Florida statute's very clear that the municipality has the say over our roads, and then there's not a definitive case where anybody has challenged that and won. So,
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Well, sort of. I mean, I think I've said what I need.
Where's the definitive case?
The difference
I need to
is,
see the definitive case.
you're right, there's
There
no
is no
definitive case
definitive
that we
case,
have
thank
found.
you.
And so,
Well, what about the case that I found? I mean, I'm not going to argue the point. My only concern is for the liability to the city. That's all I
so
really care
Commissioner
about.
Friend provided a case to me where a court looked at the design of the placement of a stop sign.
Right.
And whether it was properly placed there with an engineering study. And the court concluded that there was no evidence presented to the court that there was an engineering study done, and therefore the person was not guilty of running the stop sign or whatever it was.
Which is
in
no
that.
big deal.
Yeah,
It's
a
not a
criminal-
liability to the city
Yeah,
at all.
the standard is higher for a criminal matter than it would be a civil matter. And I will say this, that normally we have home rule on these things, and so that's I think the mentality the mayor has and all the commission has, a home rule. FDOT the state has specifically preempted roads to FDOT, period, end of story. However, FDOT in that statute says you do have some original jurisdiction over these things as long as they're in conformity, and that's where it comes down to. And so the scope of what that conformity means. The most conservative measure would always be to follow the federal traffic guidelines, but I would be shocked to hear that FDOT was trying to remove stop signs that had, up in Sneeze or someplace like that where they just stick a stop sign because it seems like a good place to put one. I can't imagine you're going to come in and do something
Right,
about that.
I agree.
If we were to ever get sued over something like that, that would probably be a point of evidence. But I think ultimately it comes down to whether we followed proper planning, followed a policy and went through the criteria, show it's a planning level decision. And we considered all this is in the public and discussion. We talked about all these different things. And so I think in the end, we would have absolute immunity on the decision of whether to place a stop sign there or not,
Yeah,
anywhere.
well, again, that's my
Yeah.
only concern is the policy that we're going to either approve or, which I'm sure we're going to approve, the policy that we're creating conforms with what needs to be done so that if we were to get sued or we have a liability issue, that we can stand on that policy. That's all I care about.
And I think all these workshops and discussions help establish that it's a planning level decision
Okay,
that you guys are exercising your discretion on, so.
perfect.
So unless DOT lawyer calls me and tells me that you absolutely must follow this,
Well, even the manual itself, we've all looked at it several times.
should,
The
yeah.
first line says guideline,
yeah,
and then it lists all those things.
Yeah.
So how do you even interpret that?
yeah. Well, and I can guarantee you,
guidelines,
DOT is always going to follow the manual because that's
Right.
the organization they have, but they're also dealing with roads that are much bigger than our roads.
Yeah.
Lots more traffic, a lot more issues, so.
And the words should and shall.
Should and
That's a big-
shall,
That's
that's
a
right.
big deal.
That is a big
Oh,
difference.
yeah.
Yep.
And may, I like may.
So I don't want to belabor the point, but hopefully you guys understand what I'm
Yeah, no, I
getting
understand
at.
completely
Yeah.
what you're saying, because we're doing the planning process now to establish the policy. So that would be our defense, quite frankly, is what you're saying.
Anyone else want to weigh in?
I like it the way you've got it drawn up.
The only other point I made last time that I'll just make again while we're here is, do we want to see each one of these as a commission? To me, once we set policy, the policy's there. If there's a policy with strict guidelines that they follow, I don't know that we need to see each one of these. But that's just
I
me.
think we should see each one.
Okay?
I mean, that's just my personal opinion.
No, I
Because I think if we don't vote on it or whatever, and like he's got on there, we have the option of, agreeing or disagreeing with it. If we don't have that on there, I fear that maybe things could get out of control by just people, having somebody call somebody, well, let's run out and put this up with that. I think we should be in contact with it.
And I would agree with you that we need to do it, but I also think that we need to do it to keep the responsibility off of the city manager's back. I mean, we're the elected officials, so we need to be the ones that the citizens can come to and say, you've messed me up and didn't do what I asked you to do,
Or we could have private businesses calling and saying, oh, I want one here, knowing that it's going to do something against someone else or for them or whatever. I think it all needs to be looked at individually.
And also the way that Mr. White was presenting this, that they're going to try and do these in groups, so it wouldn't be like we were just looking at an individual. He would probably bring us maybe 5 or 6 at a time, or maybe more than that, depending. Right. And I would also think that in the beginning, that there'll be more than later. I think there are people who have long-time concerns that they've been waiting for a long time for an answer and a resolution, and once we satisfy that, I think that things will be very smooth.
So part of your recommendation would be which type of traffic device would need to be installed in that location?
And we,
if any.
Part of my recommendation to y'all will be the group committee being able to sit down and look at traffic counts, look at, have we had a lot of wrecks there? Have we, is it hard for fire trucks to get through there? Is it, just all kinds of anything you think of questions. And my intent would be bring back, this is the reason we think you should not do anything. And almost all everything you'll get ahead of time like you do now with a packet, and it'll be online. So the residents will know why we said we're going to recommend yes or no.
Very good.
There'll be a synopsis on each road.
Open government, that's good.
I think the staff took some recommendations from the last workshop and did a great job. Congratulations. Looks good to me.
So it sounds like y'all like it. So the only changes that I would like to recommend to y'all is that one, the radar speed signs. and the 48-hour or more traffic count, and the one the mayor pointed out, instead of the word "and,"
Go to
replace it
"or."
with "or."
It's just a suggestion.
And is there going to be any, I think Dan brought it up last time, is there going to be any trial, like, for example, let's say you decide that a radar speed sign is necessary in a certain corner, are we going to go back and revisit it after a certain amount of time?
We have to look at it. We have some of those, and what we may end up doing is use some of these measures as a temporary fix to see if it works. If it works, we may, you may train, enough people see the speed, they'll start becoming aware. You hope they slow down. And then we could take those and move them, because they are expensive, those radar signs, because they're solar and.
We only own one, right?
I think we have.
Well, just change that yellow light to a blue light.
Yeah. And to answer some of your questions, I mean, not questions, but some of your Facebook posts, Mayor, the chief and I did speak yesterday or day before yesterday on Delaware and 12th.
Oh, great, great.
And also I've been speaking to a lot on Connecticut. The speed humps are back in.
Very good.
But, the managers and all at General Dynamics and everywhere out there, told us to write tickets. We've been writing a lot of tickets, so I think you reported on it last time. So we're aware and we're trying to slow down as many people as we can, but they are doing that. They are running stop signs, and, it's just a matter of, sometimes a ticket will deter them, and sometimes the blue light will slow them down,
It's bad out there. I heard some complaints about it this week, too, on 14th.
Yeah.
One of the ladies who lived there decided she was going to turn onto her street, and a car was racing up behind her and literally went out around her and went down her street. And, she said, I just stopped to let him get far enough away so I could get to my house. So
I'm
those are-
laughing because I got that same story, so I got a feeling we're talking to the same people.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm looking forward to the golf cart crossings being placed there, because right now there's not a crosswalk anywhere that you can cross 12th or 14th Street going north or south. And you literally take your life in your hands crossing those streets, walking by car, whatever. That's going to be great.
And it could be, in some areas, we may need to look at putting some signage, kids playing, or, different kind of signs. Sometimes that will slow down the average person.
Well, in the end, Connecticut's always going to be a problem.
Well,
Because of what it
and part of
feeds.
that is, some of the businesses, especially like General Dynamics, a lot of them, they have rules if they late so many times, and, they'd rather pay the ticket than be
And
late and lose their job. So,
And it may be a solution down the road when Marsh Island does their development, because they said that, they told me they were going to tie into that property, and so we could actually maybe close off that bridge and force them out that way, get them out of the subdivision.
out of the subdivision.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something we can look at for sure.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said. Do we have more than one radar sign
We
now?
have 3.
We have 3. I thought somebody told me we had 1 last time I asked.
I think there's 3.
Yeah.
That was one of the things that I actually brought to the table when I was newly elected. So we have Minnesota, Tennessee, and
Colorado.
26th.
26.
If I can just,
Colorado.
you may be talking about the traffic things.
Yeah, I was
The tra-
talking about because
the
we.
boxes
yeah.
with the.
Oh, we're
We're
on a
talking about
different
the one that
page.
has the speed limit come up
Oh,
when
we're
you
on
drive
different
down.
pages. I thought you were talking about the solar fixed sign. No,
I'm
you're-
talking
you're
about the one that
the-
registers your speed.
We have a couple of those.
We do have more than
Yeah,
one.
you're talking about the mobile ones that go
I think so.
around.
Bob, do we have 2?
I thought we only had 1.
No, the radar.
We had 3 locations. One's on Minnesota, one's on 26. The second is on Tennessee. I have a shop. We have a separate.
Yeah,
But those actually report speed too.
yeah,
So when we want information on follow-up, we can plug into it.
yeah. So
And what
we
about
have 3 of them.
17th? Did we ever get one to 17th?
we don't have one on 17th.
But we do have one on 26th.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 on 26th, actually.
We can dig.
But we still have one on Tennessee, right? Oh, the four-way stop, that makes sense. Okay,
Yeah.
I got you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there any more discussion about the traffic calming Is there anyone from the public that, I'm sorry, did I give enough time? Did everybody said what they need to say? Commissioner Friend, were you okay with your concern, or do you want to talk about it some more? Or you're good? Okay. Anybody else? Is there anyone from the public who would like to address the commission about the traffic calming? Yes, ma'am. That's a great system.
I trained her. I live on 5th and Virginia Avenue. I'm Libby Tennell. And those cars speed by on 5th Street. It's terrible. I was out in my backyard just before dark yesterday, and a car pulled up, I guess at the four-way stop, and they took off, and they must have been going 50 miles an hour. And here came a truck right after them, zooming. And you know, I don't think those four-way stops, people don't pay attention to them. When we were in the service in Michigan, if you didn't stop at the signs, you got a ticket. And I had to buy 2 kegs of beer for the squadron one time. So I stop at all the stop signs. But so many people do not do that. You have to come to a complete stop. And I think if y'all put it in the ledger, all this stuff about how they should do, they may read it more. You know, if people see it in print.
Yep.
So that's a suggestion.
I think it's a great suggestion.
And it's definitely not safe for Miss Libby to even come out of the driveway on 5th Street.
No.
Brakes, I was afraid she was going to hit me.
And just as an encouragement, the study's already been done on 5th Street, and it validates everything that you're saying. So I think you're going to get relief there. I'm not speaking for the committee, but they've done the study. Anyone else from the public? Mr. Walker.
2 questions. The crosswalks that are, I think they're on 12th, doesn't matter. The state of Florida, what do these crosswalks mean? Does it mean that when somebody steps in it, the traffic each way is supposed to stop? And are the signs supposed to be annotated with the sign saying, state law, public crossing?
I'm not sure where you were talking about. You said something about 12th Street. But
There's crosswalks, these crosswalks. I think they're down, some
There are
of them
some on 9th, too.
9th, yeah, they're scattered all over the place. They're big signs, have a pedestrian, supposed to be not a stick figure, but a pedestrian that walks across. But my question, and I brought this up to the chief a long time ago, correction, he wasn't the chief at the time, and we discussed it. And my question is this, those crosswalks, signs, are they state mandated? And if so, aren't they supposed to be annotated with a sign that says, state law, crosswalk, which means that as soon as somebody steps in it this way, they stop. Is that what ours is supposed to say?
I certainly don't know the answer to that, and I'll tell you what my first thought is that if it doesn't have a caution light or something, and it's on a major, like a state or county road, and the speed limit's posted at 45, and people are just tooling along,
Yeah,
and there's
right,
no kind
yeah.
of caution light or anything, I don't know.
I just,
Bobby,
these,
Bobby knows.
They're yellow, which means yield. You caution the pedestrians when it's a through road. The traffic still has the right of way. It's just telling you be cautious. There's a pedestrian crossing here. Unless it's flashing,
okay.
then it's a whole different thing. That's why they're yellow, not red.
Well, that answers my question, but it doesn't make any, we've got these things staggered out, and.
I was thinking it had to have some kind of light,
All
because
right.
there's no way that people could see it.
So the answer to this is those signs are not required to, if a person steps in it. Okay. Next,
Go ahead, Mr. Baker.
that answers my question.
Thank you.
The next one was golf cart signs. When it says, this is not a golf cart road, what does that mean to you?
I just saw one of those yesterday when I was out and about on the scooter, and actually, the way those are posted, I think they could be confusing. It's something on my list to talk with the city manager about this week, is first of all, because they should be turned the other way, I think, so that, that you maybe have it two-sided, because when you approach it, it looks like that you're riding your golf cart illegally on the street you're on, and the intent is to tell you can't ride it on that street, the perpendicular street to you. So I see exactly what you're saying, and then my other thing is I don't see that many golf cart-friendly signs up at all. I've been on all the different streets, and I've only seen a few up, and I know that past city manager ordered a bunch, so that's on my list for this week.
The one I specifically is one on Michigan Avenue, my street, okay?
That's where I was, actually.
It's 12th is this way, right, Michigan, and I'm looking at this sign, and so is the golf cart. And he proceeds across 12th. To me, you're not allowed to go across 12th. When the person was asked politely, he says, well, I wasn't on 12th.
So until those county crosswalks are placed there, then you should not, be crossing there. That's my understanding.
This is what's going to happen. How you interpret it and how they interpret it is two different things.
So I have a question based on what they just discussed then. Bobby says that as long as it's a yellow caution light, the traffic has the right to go and just be aware that there's pedestrians. So if I'm coming around a corner, isn't that
That wasn't quite what he said.
Oh, you said the traffic had the right of way more so than the pedestrian?
It's a through road, and then we have these pedestrian crossing signs.
Yes.
It's got the hash painted marks in the warning.
Right.
The car still has the right of way. We got to be cautious.
Okay.
So the pedestrian's got to take some responsibility.
Right. Oh, yeah. No,
But
yeah,
if
about in front of
but
it.
if
there's a
but if it
light.
has flashing lights, then the pedestrian has the right of way,
Yeah, well,
if there is any of those.
I was going to say, I was going to ask the attorney,
Right.
Yeah,
what happens if we have this yellow light business and a pedestrian walks out? I mean, isn't
Well,
the,
I think at the end of the day, and I think this may be where you had pedestrians in the state of Florida have the right of way regardless. But say you, I don't know. I mean,
I don't know the
Have to
answer
break out a
that.
Florida
Those are-
handbook.
Those are traffic citations that the police
Driver's
department would
handbook.
routinely enforce, I think. I mean, I just don't know the answer to who has the right of way.
well, I guess, okay, then let me enhance the question. If they're crossing at one of our cross lights, and we have it set up that way, and a car comes and kills a pedestrian down there, are they going to be able to sue us because of are they going to be able to sue the city because of the kind of signage we have?
Excuse me. And so the question is, if we have a yellow flashing, assuming a yellow flashing means the pedestrian has the right of way, or?
Right, and the solid yellow light just means the cars have the right of way, but everybody's supposed to.
I think that would be a planning level decision that we'd be absolutely immune from, unless for some reason the sign or the light was defective. And so if the sign was red or covered up, not clean, and it couldn't be seen, or the light was broken, for
Yeah.
instance, and we had known that it was broken,
Yeah.
I think there we could possibly be, I mean, we could be sued for anything, but we
Right.
would have that defense of immunity.
I just know there's a mom with a small child that comes down this street right here and goes to Lynn Haven Elementary, and the little girl rides on the back of her mobility device, and they cross that 2 or 3 times a day. And I've seen her had to sit there and wait, even in bad weather. So I didn't know if they really do have the right of way or not.
I don't know if, I mean, I just like you all, I've seen where the signs that say pedestrians have the right of way, state law says you must stop, and if somebody's in the crosswalk, people
Yeah.
are supposed to stop.
That's the key to this, I'm reading it now, is the crosswalk. If you have the crosswalk, then the pedestrian has the right of way in the crosswalk. Outside there, then the pedestrian is supposed to yield the right of way to the cars, basically.
So if they're on the street, then.
If they're in the street, they have to yield the right of way to the vehicle.
And the other addition to that is that the only crosswalks that are on a state or county road have been permitted and approved by either the state or the county, and so it's not really a municipal.
Right.
Correct, if they're on state or county road, yeah. It's
Okay. Thanks.
Anybody else have comments from the public on the traffic calming policy? I don't think we have anybody that seems to be against it, and we seem like we've come to some consensus, so I suppose we would place it on, yeah.
Okay.
Is there any objection to my placing it as an additional item on the agenda this evening? Yes. Well, we can wait until the end of October if you like. I just.
No, that's fine. I don't have a problem.
Rob, you're waiting on a response from the lawyer, so.
I don't think 2 weeks will make a difference.
I will definitely have a response in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay. What I was saying was that the attorney is waiting on a response for a question that he has to DOT. So I don't think 2 weeks will make a difference unless you guys are just pretty adamant about doing it.
The idea of giving the residents a notice.
So there have been two reasons. One, for Mr. Jackson to have time to hear the response from FDOT, and then also to give residents notice that it'll be on the agenda, so if residents want to attend, I think those are both very good. So, Mr. White, if you would, then maybe just count on placing it on the fourth Tuesday in October's meeting. Is that okay with everyone? Okay, go ahead. Anything else?
Do y'all want me to also have those other roads where y'all can look at those if you approve this policy, or y'all want to wait another meeting?
I would love for you to have those roads ready for approval at the
Okay.
next
Sure.
meeting. They've been waiting a long, long time.
Okay. All right. I'll have
Thank
that
you.
together.
Thank you. That would be great. Okay, we have about 18 minutes until time for the regularly scheduled commission meeting to begin, so I'll declare this workshop ended and have a little break.